Right there, folks. There's an interesting news article here, basically saying that anti-Jewish and anti-Muslim feeling is on the rise in Europe and the Middle East. Well, anti-Muslim feeling is not on the rise in the Middle East. That would be weird. Well, actually not. Anti-Christian feeling is on the rise in the West. You know what I'm saying. Apparently, according to this article, Britain is the only place in which anti-Jewish feeling hasn't risen. And that's true because in this country, anti-Muslim feeling has really gone up. I mean, the number of people who say, fucking Muslims, I fucking hate them, I fucking kill them all, get rid of them, fucking deport them, I don't care if they're Muslim, they ain't British. You know, people are really getting quite pent up about Muslims. But Jews, not a problem, you know, at all, actually. So it's kind of weird to me that in other countries in Europe, according to this article, I'll link it in this sidebar thing, anti-Jewish feeling has gone up quite rapidly. I mean, I don't understand that, because in Britain at least, the Jews more or less just keep to themselves, but they're not sort of totally secluded. I mean, they have their own community. I mean, a lot of the time they have their own community. I mean, my boss at my old work was Jewish. I didn't even know for like 3 years. So, I mean, they're not all secluded. They're not all Orthodox Jews. But, you know, even the ones who live in their sort of communities in sort of Highbury area and all the rest of it, in London, they're fairly friendly folk. I mean, I don't really have any problem with Jews at all. And I don't think most British people do. So I'm really quite surprised that anti-Jewish feeling's gone up in other countries. But this article says it might be because of anti-Israeli feeling. And yeah, I think definitely in Europe they're a lot more sympathetic towards the Palestinians and a lot more hostile to Israel than we are in this country. In this country, it's not really a particularly big thing for us. So that's probably why. Of course, Jews are not the state of Israel. It's not the same thing. But, you know. Let me just bring up some stats from this. 52% in Spain, 50% in Germany, 46% in Poland, 38% in France have negative attitudes towards Muslims now. It's gone up. Apparently, the poll was about 25,000 people in 24 different countries, so it's not brilliant, but apparently the error of margin is about 4%, 2 to 4%. Apparently anti-Christian attitudes have been on the rise, particularly in Spain, where 24% now rate Christians negatively, up from 10% in 2005. In France, surprisingly, is apparently the most secular nation, according to this survey, with 60% saying they never pray, and only 1 in 10 rating religion as important in their lives. Now, on the face of it, this might look like a great victory for us free thinkers. You know, the world is becoming more and more anti-religion, thank God. But I don't really think it is a good thing, because you have to ask, why are people becoming more and more anti-Jewish? Except in Britain, seems to be an isolated case. Well, it's to do with the policies of Israel. So, because of the policies of Israel, pretty much exclusively because of that reason, bad feelings towards Jews has risen. That's not acceptable, okay? Jews are not the same as Judaism, and Judaism and Jews are not the same as the State of Israel. 3 separate things, okay? Let's not confound politics and religion any more than, you know, it already is, okay? Anti-Muslim feeling going up, is it because people have realised, oh God, the theology of Islam is ridiculous, you know, we have to believe in a kind of empiricist, you know, follow an empiricist sort of free-thinking ethos? Is that why people are more and more anti-Muslim? No, it's because of the terrorist situation, the way the terrorist situation has been spun rather to be a Muslim issue. It, you know, specifically at the 11th of September, but other attacks too. Also, there's a lot of immigration into Europe from Muslim countries, and that's breeding a lot of resentment, because you get whole communities taken over, really, with various different immigrant groups. And particularly in Britain, immigration is happening so rapidly now. You have literally whole areas where I live, where 5 years ago there were no Polish people, but now, literally, it's only Polish. It's only Polish shops, it's only Polish people, etc. Poles aren't a particular problem, even though there's too many here, and I wouldn't have let them in. And to be honest, I would have deported. If I could, I would deport most of them, because I just don't think it's appropriate to have the population swell that much. But that's a topic for another video. But Poles mostly are quite friendly people. They're very hard-working, very industrious usually. At least in this country they are. They're very friendly, and yeah, I get on quite well with Polish people. I quite like them. Whereas a lot of Muslims, they tend to be a lot more, when they're little ghettoized communities, they tend to be a lot more insular. In fact, out of all the groups from the Indian subcontinent, because I live in an area with a hell of a lot, I live in one of the most diverse areas in the country. Only about 50% of the population is native Anglo-Celtic. Most of the rest is Indian or Somali or whatever, by descent or by migration, recent migration. And out of the three sort of religious groups from the Indian subcontinent, Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims, I have to say I've always found Muslims to be the least friendly, even before this whole terrorist situation. Sikhs tend to be very pious, but they often keep it sort of hidden, even though they wear a turban, etc. They often are fairly integrated. Hindus, again, are fairly similar. When we're talking about the relations between Hindus and Sikhs and Muslims, it's different. There's a lot of prejudice between these three groups. It's pretty ridiculous, actually. It makes me laugh. I'll have a video about that eventually. But no, it's the Muslims which are the problem. The number of times I've seen young Britons come out with gibberish, like, you know, thieves should have their hands cut off and women should be at home and all this kind of stuff. It makes me sick. But anyway, so yeah, on the face of it, this poll's really great news for us because people are becoming very, very anti-religion. But the question is, what are we putting in its place? Are people becoming more rational? Are people becoming more, you know, in favour of a sort of anti-religious viewpoint, a kind of rationalistic, materialistic viewpoint? No, people aren't. That's the problem. People are going more and more to bloody, you know, Eastern gurus, and more to all this New Age nonsense, and more just dulling their brains with programs like Big Brother. I mean, just really just killing their own minds off. So, actually, this poll I don't think is a very good thing at all. If this is accurate reflection, I think it's worse, because what it shows is hostility between different groups is increasing, whilst at the same time the global situation is not good, and whilst immigration is in the West really a big issue. I can see race riots and religion riots in a very serious way within the next 20 years. There is going to be rivers of blood on the streets of Britain, at least. It's going to happen, okay? And that's not good for any of us. People aren't getting more rational. People aren't becoming more rational, I don't think. People are just becoming more bigoted and more prejudiced against Muslims. You know, we should welcome Muslims. We should welcome all groups. You know, hating people of religions is not the issue, as long as they integrate. This is the problem. It's a two-sided thing, isn't it? It's always both sides. There's a picture in this article of a couple of Muslims in Blackburn wearing veils. That fucking sickens me. It always happens on the train. Always happens around my way. You'll be on the train, for instance, the tube, the underground, and it's boiling hot. You know, I'm there in a shirt, and there's signs on the walls saying "drink water." On the speaker system, they're saying, "Please don't." Why am I saying it in an American accent? Say, "Please." It's very plummy, actually. "Please remember to bring some water with you, because it's very hot today." You know, and yet you see it all the time. And then you've got a Muslim woman dressed up. She's got gloves on, so you can't see her hands. She's got the most microscopic little slits. She looks worse than a ninja. And she's got all these little layers on, because you can see underneath as well. It's black as well, so it's got to be boiling. She has got to be sweating like a fucking pig. I'm there in a t-shirt, and I am just like, oh my god. And here's the thing, you got a bloody husband there, and the number of times I see this, it's not even a joke. You got a husband stand next to her, wearing a fucking little bit of a hat and a shirt, similar to my shirt, but, you know, Arabic style, you know, Mediterranean style often. Shirt, you know. And it's like, well, how's that fair? How's that right? What, am I supposed to look at that and say yes please? No. Am I supposed to look at Muslims being given exemptions from the British way of life? See some of my previous videos on that, for instance. Supermarkets saying that Muslims don't have to serve people alcohol if they don't want to. Hello? You fucking do your job, you piece of shit. And don't throw your fucking spasmo faith in my face and say that's an excuse to be a difficult cunt. So yeah. No, if I see people walking down with a veil, I feel kind of ambivalent, because I don't want to sort of have a pop at the woman. You know, things are probably difficult enough for her, but on the other hand, I have to just let my face just show my absolute fucking disgust and hatred for that way of thinking. So, we're becoming more anti-religion in the West, but are we becoming more rational? No. Are we becoming more loving? No. So, I think this poll isn't very good news.